I'm here with Marjorie Perry. Marjorie, if you could introduce yourself and the company you represent as well.
Good afternoon. My name is Marjorie Perry and President and CEO of MZM Construction and Management Company located in New Jersey.
Great to have you here. If you could walk us back to 1992 or 94, what happened there? You started MZM Construction. How did you choose that particular industry?
Well, let's just look at it from the industry chose me. So, what happened is that I was a corporate trained. I was working for my last corporate job was United Airlines, where I was doing sales and marketing for them worldwide and traveling worldwide for them. And one day, I had a flight and Ralph Lauren was on my flight and we had a chance to talk. But this is pre 92. And he said, one day you're going to just want to do your own thing. And sure enough, I think it was 89 that I just decided that this was enough. Came out of it, decided that make a difference in the world. After traveling the world and seeing what was out there, I said, I could do that. So I met two gentlemen who wanted to start a construction company. It was their idea, actually, but I was just very good at operations. So I went ahead and helped them get going, and the rest is history, as they would say.
Rest is history. Has since you when during the first couple of years, was there anything that stood out that surprised you that you didn't expect in that industry as far as regulations, as far as running the business in general, or anything that you remember from those times?
Absolutely. I didn't know anything. And I wasn't building houses. I was building bridges and hotels. And I'm on projects like that and I don't know anything. So that's a recipe for loss and or depletion of oneself. So as a result of that, I lost my money, about $1 million, and which forced me to go back and work on getting my civil engineer and my MBA.
Is that the moment where that you described saying that this was your or that happening?
That moment, yeah, this was a watershed moment. It's like, okay, we're going to be all the way out of business if we don't go and do something else. And so that led me back to more education.
More education. That was your MBA, as you said, somewhere
My
in one of
MBA and worked on my civil engineer.
exactly. And how did it help you? Why how did you implement what did you implement into the business that turned it around?
Well, if you don't know numbers, you can't do anything.
Uh,
You can't do anything. You have to know the numbers. When you think about it, most people, let's just say the 90s, like today, everything is information technology, everything is driven by the numbers. And, you got to really look at the numbers. So when you become a business owner, I'll speak truth to power on that one. If you don't know what your burn rate is, or you don't know what's supposed to be, or you don't know the cost of a hammer versus a, a Tonka toy, then you might have some damn problems. That's all I can say. And so clearly, I didn't know. And then the two gentlemen that I was doing this with, they could not handle entrepreneurship. So I bought them out. You make moves thinking you understand, and then you realize you don't know a lot. And so that led me into recalibrating my lines of credit, recalibrating how I was going to move forward, recalibrating am I going to be a growth business versus a boutique business. So all of that came up during that period of time.
that's so interesting. You bought out your partner so pretty early. I mean, a couple of years into the operations, right?
Yeah, they could not handle it. The first check we received was about $50,000, and they thought we had hit jackpot. No, 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 no. That's called gross top line, top line. And then we go through expenses. What's the EBITDA, number? Okay, so then we have to come down, and then we have to come down net net. And they couldn't handle it. They had families, so I bought them out, and voila, that's when I fell off the cliff and lost my first $1 million after buying them out.
Oh, so that happened after. So they weren't part of it. They wouldn't handle it probably.
They wouldn't have handled it. No,
They wouldn't have handled it. That's a
no.
bold move. You are moving back then and pretty
Yeah,
much throughout the
yes,
career.
absolutely.
So You've been operating business for over 3 decades right now. How did you approach and navigate through 2008 and that time where
Well, the good thing for me when 2008 came up, I was heavy commercial. I wasn't residential.
hmm,
So commercial never wasn't disrupted during 2008. So I was working for the Army Corps of Engineers. I was doing some other work for some other companies. And since we were on the commercial side, you didn't get impacted as much as mortgage drying up. And, guys have to close their business because they were strictly all residential. And so that's what I was able to do. I was able to counter that. I was able to counter that because of the type of projects that I actually had looked at the trends and wanted to be more of a part of than the residential side. And I was also at airports. So I really didn't feel the impact of 2008.
so I read that you had some pretty interesting on your website, pretty interesting projects like the art center, the MetLife Stadium, and some other I believe like libraries and some bigger buildings, educational facilities and institutions and what have you. How did you got in front of decision makers or anyone who would was it like public bids that you participated in
Yeah, these are
and you
all
won the
public bids. And at the time, we were at the height of, as they would allegedly call it today, DE&I. They were looking for people who wanted to grow in industries that were traditionally non women driven or non Latina driven, Asian driven. So I just happened to be in that pocket 30 years ago of where they were looking to train, educate, and promote businesses like myself.
And who do you primarily serve right now? Like what are the projects that you're currently
Still
approaching?
airports, still airports. As I began to kind of wind down a little bit, but still primarily bread and butter is airports.
Airport. So so you're not working mainly in within your state or close to New Jersey, or are you going like
Doesn't matter
nationwide?
what I do. I can go nationally. Doesn't matter.
Really?
It doesn't
Wow.
matter. Yeah,
They're
you either
they're
you have the skill set, you'll travel where the money is. So no, it doesn't matter if you just do New Jersey. Right now, I'm not doing New Jersey. I'm in New York. So it just really depends on what the opportunity is, what some of your partners are doing, and how you can participate with them.
they're rebuilding LAX for a couple of years. Maybe they need some help. I was just there.
I wouldn't touch LAX if I wanted to. Newark was enough, and Kennedy is enough. So you guys can have LAX. I'm not doing LAX. No, 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 no.
I can only imagine could be pretty stressful at times. So you've mentioned a couple of things already, but what else do you do differently that your clients respect and appreciate the most? And maybe they've told you that you're the only person doing that and no one else is approaching it the same way. Any problems, challenges that you face that you approach differently, or what else that stands out as far as MZM construction and management goes?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest gift is to always know what your added value is going to be. And everything in business is always relationships, the financial implications of it, and quality control that your customers can have the best experience. So, those are the three mantras that have led me and my team to have the success that we've had over the years. I think that there's no project that you can go on that you don't add those three components, and you have to stay true and consistent and intentional about those three things. You've got to have a great customer experience, you have to understand the financial implication, and you have to understand trends, value add. What is it that I bring to the table that's going to be differential from another construction company? Because at the end of the day, a piece of sheetrock is sheetrock, but how you present it and you implement it is a whole different way. And I had the fortuitousness to really sit down and find out what my customers needed, how they needed it, and what we could do with it.
And speaking of trends, are you seeing any shifts in the industry or trends as far as like what clients really need the most, like 2025 and beyond or post-COVID world?
Well, the trends are going very, very heavily towards private equity. Okay, so it's going to be interesting for people on how they can buy a home or even live in a home. The big projects are still pretty much the top 10 in the country that are doing airports, theaters, schools, etc. So the trends I see Going to be more rental apartments built and less new housing being built, unless it's on the luxury side.
I feel like this is the trend that's happening worldwide.
Yes, absolutely.
Nice.
And because the cost of living is so expensive, and when you think about your adjusted annual increase rate, it's what, 3%, 4%. Meantime, things may go up 10, 15, 20%. So you can never catch up with yourself. It's like there's no more middle class. It's either the very top or it's at the bottom. So as a result, they're pushing rental, rental, rental. And a lot of that is owned and honed by the private equity companies out there. They're making a killing just building, supporting building all these rental properties.
It's crazy. We see we have like 4 or 5 big developments around our house alone, and it's like everywhere we travel, you see this
Yes,
development.
yes. And it's rental. It's not even to buy.
It's all rental. Yes, it's
It's all rental. So what does that tell everybody? It's like, well, then you still are slowing down the potential for wealth creation if you don't own real estate.
true.
Think about that. That's the trend. And everybody's falling hook, line, and sinker and having a fancy, cute 500 square foot apartment that has a rooftop, but they rent.
You never own anything.
You cannot create wealth or you can't create the next level of anything when you rent. You've got to have something to write off and you have to have some kind of appreciable asset. And owning a piece of property is the appreciable asset. So there's going to be a slower roll, I think, over the next 5 to 10 years. And just think about it. We're in AI now, and AI is going to take away some of those additional jobs that are already out there. So when that happens, then we're really stuck in the rental space because where do you go work? So AI is going to be a real, real pivotal change for, especially here in America.
How do you see, or how do you play with? I guess we can say play with AI because it's still early in your business. Or do you see any implementations in your?
No, AI has been in my business a long time. I'm on the engineering side. AI has been there for a long time. It can do your calculations, it can do your spreadsheets. No, AI construction has always been trending, especially since the pandemic. It sped it up, AI.
Hmm,
Because remember, everything went over to technology. So that was for the AI folks to even get faster and more creative than whatever they do. If you think about your surgery today, a lot of that they can do through the robotic eye, which is AI driven, without even cutting you today. So AI is here. Now, what it hasn't done is trickle down to, let's say, the $15 an hour jobs yet, but it's coming. It's coming.
it is. Yes,
It's
we see
coming. It's
ever.
coming. So it's already at the top, but it's going to eventually trickle down to the middle class or the lower middle class. And God forbid, if you don't have the training, you're going to just be out
Yeah, we see new things coming out literally every single day for the last
every day,
every
every
day.
day.
It's
And I
crazy.
used to close out the MBA students, not to digress too much from what we're talking about. And one of the things that I would tell them, how do you service the world? Don't service an idea, service the world. How does that service the world? And what education will you have to have during that time? And the last class I taught was 7 years ago. And I said, listen, every 9 months, there's a new disruptor right on your tail for whatever you're bringing to the table. Every 9 months. And that was 7 years ago. Now it's almost down to 3 months. So if there's a Uber Eats, there's going to be a Lyft food delivery truck. What's the other one with the carrot? The cart.
It's a car.
Boom, they come out one after another after another. That's why we're in so much information overload today, because if they see something, people can re-implement it and come up with a new idea in 15 to 10 minutes flat. It's unbelievable how much technology has changed the world. It's a great asset, and sometimes it can be detrimental because people don't study and read. They want to go chat GPT and think that they can write a concept paper and don't have to understand it, but you still need critical thinking. You can't get rid of critical thinking, and we're dying on critical thinking.
That's a big thing there. Critical thinking. I feel like AI makes our brain lazy.
Yes,
What that
it
is,
does.
if it requires some or deep research type of thinking, or something as simple as what I'm going to cook for dinner. We don't think anymore. We just put it into that machine,
Or
AI.
Alexa, how do you cook a meatloaf?
Yeah,
Why don't you read and figure it out for yourself? Do you put onions in there and green peppers? Okay, so we're there. I just don't know what the backlash is going to look like.
that's going to be an interesting decade to observe with AI advancing so fast. And it's yeah, it's just thinking, it's just crazy that we outsource thinking. I always said that, unfortunately, I went to school in Poland and Germany and then finished in the United States, and I ended up not knowing how to think. And then AI came around, and now everyone is forced not to think. So in order to stand out, you have to learn how to think
You
for
have to learn.
yourself.
Thinking's never going to die, even with AI, but it will die for people who didn't like to think in the first place. That's going to take them out. It's going to take them out.
That's a perfect way to phrase it. You're also an executive coach and business strategist, national speaker. Are you still doing that, or are you mainly
Yes.
focused?
In fact, I'm leaning more into that now as I start to say, okay, enough of running around and using porta johns on the job site. But yes, I do a lot of that. I'm requested to do a lot of that, and I'm very proud of, what steps people are taking based on my guidance and support.
Are you, as far as that part goes, are you mainly saying within the industry, or are you in
No,
general?
no, no, no. A business mindset or an MBA can talk about any business. Now, if I want to be very, very intentional about a business that's in my area, yes, I can speak truth to power to that all day long. But I'm only here to talk about strategic planning for any business. May you be selling widgets or may you not, because I need to be product place and promotion. That's it. That's any business that you have. I'm on the service side. And then there's people who come to me that's on the product side. Who's your audience? How are you going to diversify? What are you going to do when you get there? How long can you stay there? All right. Did DE and I impact you now that the system is saying there's no more DE and I? Have you been kicked out? What do you do to broaden your line? Who else do you need to touch and go? So I consider myself a very, very chief strategist. And it's pretty much any business I can go in. I tend to stay in the development and construction for the most part. But if it's a startup or maybe seasoned 3-year business, I could talk to any of it.
And during your years as CEO and president of the company, helped you? Have you?
Well, that's always my prayer life is first. And then, I work out. In fact, I'm just coming in now from the gym, doing my best to eat as positively as I can and minimize the noise distraction of what's terrible. We live in a society now where everybody is a judge and jury, even if they're not in the room. And so I do my best to avoid being around that type of clientele or friends or relationships because I want my relationship to be as strong as me or stronger because our mindsets is what gets us through when it's troubling times.
I love that. Yes, it's was actually reading about it yesterday, reviewing my notes from a book I finished reading recently. That was about that, like make less judgments and don't pay attention to others' judgments, because everything we say, we had a family and friends gathering yesterday. Everything you say is being judged, and I was observing that as I review my notes prior to the meeting or the
It's
gathering.
terrible. Everybody is now judge and jury. I'm like, were you in the room? How do you know?
Yeah.
Well, they said so. Well, if that's your only,
Source of information.
I can't talk to you because I make decisions based on being in the room or really studying the trends. That's where the thinking continues. But if you decided that a tweet was enough for you to understand the whole process and what's going to happen, then you and I probably won't be in a relationship of any sort.
That's that short form content that is rewiring our brains. Short form content in written or video format that makes our brain tick so quickly. We think that after watching a 30-second clip, we learn something that we can implement and run
I
with.
know. I'm like, think about, well, this is happening and that's happening. And I said, no, you don't know what's happening. You just heard a 30-minute clip, a 30-second clip. No. So I try my best to minimize that, stay enough on geopolitical world and then come out of it as quickly as I can, because most of the noise, you can't really see the truth. And a lot of it's not happening. It's more of shock and awe to get you nervous and afraid than it is actually implementation.
Now, my final question to you, Marjorie, what advice would you give to your younger self, your younger founder self, back in from essentially when you were starting?
Stop being afraid, and you're fine just the way you are. I thought something was wrong. I wasn't smart enough. I have to study 40 times harder. I've got a class, that class. And a lot of things I did have to take on in order to improve my skill set for operations. But I did it with fear versus I'm enough. And that's what I would tell my younger self, that it would all work out.
Big lesson for everyone as well. Marjorie, thank you so much for taking the time and answering some of my questions today. I have definitely a lot of deep reflections that I have to do after that, some critical thinking and deep reflection after as I will go through the recording. So please stay on for another minute. But I wanted to say thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, and looking forward to seeing some of your maybe speaking engagements somewhere online in the near future.
Okay, that's